become very important to me. I like to read history. And history is important, but my history is extremely important to me, because my history tells me how I come to be who I am and how the actions of society and the world have impacted my life. So the other day I was reading a book by Angela Davis. And Angela Davis, in her book, Women, Class, and Sex, in her book, she said something very interesting to me. And it shook my world. Said the most important people in our lives, and I'm not doing this and leaving anyone out, but since I am who I am, I have to talk about those people who have impacted me mostly. Said that she was talking about the impact of women in our lives and how your impact has been minimized over the years. How the narrative is designed to minimize who you are, but yet and still, there are some powerful things happening. If I start to call out a few names, you'll know who they are. If I said Elizabeth Catan Staton, you would immediately go to the suffrage movement and think about the women wanting to vote and all that. Susan B. Anthony, they had a quarter with her name on it. You go, but when we call out Sojourner Truth, and we start to call those women out, then they have a big impact in my life. And as I read the history of all this, I need you to understand today, I'm probably one of those people that get most upset when I look at women and we tell women that you've been relegated to a certain place and you can't do and you're not supposed to do certain things. I'm probably going to step on someone's toes today, but you need to come and step on mine because I got big feet and you can step on them. But this is something I need to talk about. When I look at all the inequities in our society, and especially my mom and my grandmother and how they suffered, and when I go back and look at all the things, that's why I had all the men stand up today so that we could say something to women, say something to encourage them, say something to say how proud we are, say something to say that if it had not been for you, we wouldn't be here, because you can ride down the street and hear all kinds of messages about women. But when it comes a time for us to stand up and say something, we ought to be able to stand up and say something that will shake the world. I'm not getting an amen this morning, but you ought to come on and say something about it. Because when we start to look at all the women, that what has gone on in the lives of our mothers and our grandmothers, we have to understand what a hard way they had to go. If you go all the way from slavery up to now, and we look at what they had to do, if I ask people in here to raise their hand now, we can't go many generations back where it did not matter what kind of education you had, you were not able to ascend into a job that did you justice for what you knew. I sit in the movie and cried. I think it was the movie Hidden Figures. I sit in the movie and cried. I sit there and cried, and I know it has an effect on me that it hasn't had on many other people, but I sit there and cry because I realized that we had some of the smartest people on the planet that were relegated to walk a half mile to use the bathroom. And then I would not let myself off the hook. I said, where did we get this stuff from? Where did it come from? And how in the world do we not have enough security to look at those that brought us from a mighty long way and say, I appreciate you, without taking some unrealistic standard to judge people by, not knowing that that standard was designed to denigrate all of us and keep everybody in a place. And so when I come to start to think about it, as I sit there and thought about it, I said, how do you have a person who can calculate the orbit of an object to come in a place and tell this person you can't go into a restroom and send them something? That's something we need to think about. Then it hit me in my heart really hard. It said, Jimmy, how in the world can you as a male walk into a church and say to somebody that a woman who's been on her knees so long until she got calluses on it cannot stand up in front of a congregation and say what thus said the Lord? It does not make any sense to me. I'm probably stepping on somebody's toes this morning, but you need to come and talk to me about it. Because the text said that we ought to get together and reason about it. But I need you to understand this. What has been the backbone of the family that we came from all the way from slavery? It has been black women. And I'm going to sit here today and tell you, this text says Tabitha was so important daughter, she had made tonics. She had made all those things. In Greek, her name made Dorcas. And she did a lot of stuff, but she became ill and died. And that caught me right there, Mother Davis. She became ill and died, and it left a vacuum in the community. So they looked and they said, there's a vacuum here, and we don't have anybody to take the place yet. We need Tabitha to come back. So they called Peter, and Peter, my man, comes over. Peter walks in the room, he looks at everybody, and he looks around at them, and they were crying, and they were mourning and everything, and Peter said that your time is not yet. So Peter goes into the room and he puts everybody out. So if anybody ever come in and they have some ideas about something that's going surpass where you are, you need to leave and let them do what God can do to. Oh, I'm not talking to somebody here. You walk in the room and Peter walks in the room. Peter has seen somebody raised from the dead. Peter knew they could get up. And if you don't believe that God can do the impossible, when folks start to talk to you about impossibility, get up and leave. Because you have nothing to offer to the conversation. So we are sitting here, Peter walks in the room and he says, what's wrong? And they told him that the person that died, she made tonics and she made all these things for, we're ready to go meet him. Peter said, let me have a conversation with him. Peter gets in the room and I don't know what his prayer was like, but he got down beside the bed and he knelt down and he prayed and he turned to the body and I said something like this and said, Tabitha, community is in trouble. Oh, you need to look at some woman and say, the community is in trouble. And he reached down and he said, get up, stand up. Everyone, we have to walk up to every woman that has life in her body and say the community is in trouble, stand up. Pray to God that they stand up, and then you got to be helpful. I'm just not talking about black, I'm talking about every woman. They need to be brought into a place called, for the life of me, I can't understand. Is anybody in here that got here without coming through a mother's womb? Raise your hand. I need to see you. It does not make any sense to me, period, that we can sit in a place and still have some apprehensions about what folks can do. Oh, I'm going to tell you who told me about the gospel first. Irene Stevenson told me. So look, you are somebody. That's my grandmother, by the way. You are somebody. I expect great things from you. Because here's what happened. My grandmama, she wanted to go to school, but guess what? She couldn't go.
All right now. All right. Tell it.
And if she had been able to go, I don't know what she could have done.
All right.
So we look at all this potential, and then, oh, I'm not letting us off the hook. Then we get off of it the same way. We show up Sunday morning at the church.
Come on, preacher.
Put deacon somebody in place.
Come on, preacher.
Pastor somebody in place.
Come on.
And then mother so-and-so come up who can preach the gospel because she's experienced goodness of God. Who can preach the gospel that will change folks' lives. And we have allowed someone to tell us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Someone to tell us. Mother Harper, raise your hand back there.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
I know for a fact, Mother Harper's been closer to the Lord than a whole bunch of us. And my God, when I think about Mother Stevenson, 1913. Just let your mind go through the history. John McQueen, if you had been in the army in 1913, they would have made you scrub pots and pans.
Right.
This very day that we are celebrating, guess who put it in effect? Woodrow Wilson.
Yes.
The boy was backwards.
All right now.
Completely backwards. And here we are on this day. We ought to do something. Pick out a woman. Go tell her how beautiful she is. Go tell her how wonderful. I'm not trying to hit on her. Just tell her how beautiful. Ain't I a woman?
Yeah.
I called 3 names out before. And in the process of finding some representation and everything, people would prefer not to do what they can accomplish because they have decided that it's more economically expedient to keep you in your place.
All right now. All right.
I come from a little town in Louisiana, and I cannot imagine what it would be if people just looked at each other and said that We're going to remove the obstacles. Hey, we got some obstacles today that need to be removed. We're going to remove the obstacles and let you be what you ought to be. You can be all that God created you to be without trying to keep someone else down.
That's right. Yes.
That's right.
Yesterday, my group read a book, and every time we have a meeting, something happens. Yesterday, I went to a graduation that I couldn't miss. But I read the book 2 times. It's called Factfulness. And in the book, the gentleman tried to bring some facts to the forefront that we don't understand. They said 7.5 billion people in the world. Anybody know that? Who in here have $5 in their pocket? Joe McQueen, you can help me with this. If you have $5 in your pocket, you're in the top tier of folk, the richest folk in the world. There are folk that make $27 a year. Wait, I didn't say an hour. A year. And we sit here in our palatial places worried about crazy stuff. Whether or not McDonald's put bacon on our hamburger. We sit here and we allow ourselves to make stupid records. They denigrate women. And we don't criticize people for buying the stuff. Matter of fact, we put them on MTV and put them on BET and all that stuff, and we what's the word I'm looking for? We lift them up. Give them awards for it. And I asked some young men that was sitting there listening to somebody, I said, do you know they talk about your mother? He looked at me and said, no, they're not. I said, give me the money. And put me out there and let me go curse your mama out and you give me $30 for doing it. That doesn't make any sense, does it? And then the worst part about it is you pay the money for it to talk about our mothers and our daughters and our wives and everybody else, and then we pay somebody for it, and you know how much of that money come back in our community? Tell me, Brother Doja. So-and-so. She don't look like this. Well, guess what? When my grandmama was scrubbing floors, whoever they had on the front page of Vogue didn't know nothing about that. When all they could do was clean somebody's house. And then they had the audacity to pass a rule that you get no Social Security for it. Somebody need to say, rise up. Because we're here to help you. Or I could keep going, but I promise you I wouldn't be long. But those things bother me. They bother me to the degree that we even in the church neutralize the power of the church. I remember a few years ago, it hasn't been but a few years ago, I had the audacity to ask 7 women to preach the 7 last words. Oh my God, you know how quickly, Brother General McKean, I became known in Detroit? I went to a place and I'm sitting there and I know these folk don't know who I am, but the only one thing that they knew about me was, you guess what? You are the preacher that's crazy enough. Not only that, it could have been another church, but it's New Mount Zion. No, the historical New Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church. You do not do that. Are you still there? I go, last time I thought about it was. But guess what? It's time, it's time, it's time. We sit here every Sunday with an empty church. People talking about they're not feeding me and they're not doing this and here. And we still haven't got put in place where we appreciate where we came from. You were not sent here intergalactically to do something. Some woman walked around with you for 9 months in her stomach. 9 whole months. 9. You know how many 9 months is? How many days that is? And there's a commercial on TV where this woman is pregnant. She's going there and she told the little dude, she said, cool down, little dude. He's there kicking. I can't imagine. And if you go back and look at the story, what was God doing? What was God doing? What was he doing? The creative power that he placed inside of people, when we have the audacity not to every woman, I say, I feel like bowing down. we start talking about it's them. It ain't them.
Come on, preacher.
I better clear it up. It is not them. It's us. We walk around and the one thing that gets me is every time I hear the word head of household.
Come on now.
I see somebody's head cut off, stuck on a stake with some colonized mentality using it to keep you on the wraps.
All right.
It's time out for that stuff.
All right. All right.
In a graveyard at home in Hazel, I got relatives that do not have a name on a rock. You know why? People didn't dare put their name on a rock because they could associate them with somebody else. Because people would come in, it's time out for that stuff.
Come on, preacher.
It's time out for that stuff. And guess what? I don't believe Jesus is satisfied.
All right.
I cannot believe Jesus is satisfied. When Jesus would look at you and say, the narrative that you have me coming into the world through an immaculate conception, into the womb of your young woman, and she comes into this world, and she comes in here through the use of her, and he walks in the world, and I did all this stuff, and you, you have enough stuff to know. You ought to know better than that. We pay more attention to horses than we do our.
Come on, preacher.
They find a mare that's a good recipient, and they find a stud, and they will write articles about them. But you let them talk about my mama. Oh, and I better get to a point where I need to go, and I'm going to shut up now. We have a tendency to walk around and talk about what the mama did based upon what the child's going to be.
Come on, preacher.
I got news for all of y'all in here. The same folk that made those rules 100 years ago, I better go further, 150 years ago when they abolished the slave trade, guess what they did? Nobody writes about the fact. Nobody writes about the fact that I can use somebody as a breeding machine and not be responsible for God for it. But we need to understand that, so a lot of stuff you need to recognize, you need to say that God spoke to my soul. Get together and ask folk, what do you think God is saying to you right now?
Right.
Because God is a God of justice. God is a God of love. And sometimes you need to get together. He said, come, let us sit down and reason together. I don't care what other folk doing, and I don't even care where they're going to heaven and hell. I'm talking about us today. Talking about me and you who have been kissed by the Son. I need you to stand up and say, hey. I just read an article this morning. They said, hey was too casual. Say hi. Let's talk. And when you talk, look, I just found out this morning, I think Golden State beat Houston. Did they wipe them out?
Yeah.
And they were talking about someone else, and I was sitting there thinking about, that doesn't matter to me. Someone was telling me the other day that Cabrera, one of the baseball players, got 2 families. He complaining, I guess if you gave me $30 million, I told him he should move to, what's that place? Utah. So you have 2 wives. Whatever you do, what happens. So I'm sitting here thinking, the things that we get concerned about, but what I'm concerned about, every woman in here, raise your hand. Brother Dozier, the one that didn't say anything this morning, stand up. I want you to say your greatest appreciation. That's inclusive of everybody, your mama and everybody else in here. Go ahead. You got a couple minutes, yeah.
All the mothers, people who have influenced my life, and really close to that hand, I was supposed to say, I wouldn't be here without them. All my trials and tribulations, I attribute to them. Very form, I love them very much. And I wish to see them being blessed.
Amen.
All I'm going to say, if we want to find security, We got to find it in a place where the most intimate thing that ever happened to you in your life ever happened. Brother Thomas, you're looking at me laughing. You can't find another intimate moment in your life that was more intimate than the 9 months you spent inside of Mother Thomas's son.
That's right.
And it does not matter if you spent 9 months in someone's stomach. You have to realize what God did. I don't care if she was Jezebel. You are here. So it's time out for going back doing that antiquated stuff or talking about I'm the way I am because of what they... No, you're not. Get in a relationship that will change you. Paul said, be ye transformed. And Paul's talking about transforming into some demonic folk. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Get yourself off of Jerry Springer and into the spring of life. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Tell someone they were wonderful. I'm finished. One of my friends was talking to me the other day about a relationship that in Louisiana that he was in, and it was messed up. I said, you sure? I said, yeah, it is messed up. He said, how you know? I said, because you messed up. Don't need to tell me nothing about her. It's you. You messed up. Have you got it together yet? I said, no, because here's what happened. A relationship with 2 people in it, if one messed up, guess what? The relationship is messed up. So you need to get yourself together. He didn't like that very much, Brother McQueen. He wanted to stop talking to me. I said, just keep on talking. You told me your stuff and you asked me to talk. Now I'm telling you, what do you feel about her? Well, she won't do what I want her to do. She doesn't think the way I want her to think. I said, you don't need her. You need to wait a little while until actually develop a robot that will do exactly what you need to do. You're talking about relationship. You're talking about being in a place with someone who can tell you, what does it feel? I can't tell you what it feels like to walk around with someone in my stomach. I can't tell you what it feels like to take a contrary child and hold him and say, I love you in spite of all. I can't tell you what it feels like that, but I know someone that can. And it's time for us to step up. It's time for us to step up. Because if you have a valuable asset in your midst, if you don't take care of it, someone will destroy it. I have to tell you, I am not impressed when I look at the TV and see Beyonce.
Yeah. Say it, Pastor. Tell them. All right. All right.
She's out of my league. That's high maintenance. Could never be, but I'm going to tell you a story. A few weeks ago, I went to Mother Stevenson's house and I walked into my wife and I had to leave because you know why? She was so excited. She was so excited to tell us about life. She was so excited to tell us how much she appreciated the moment and what she was really saying to us. What she was really saying to us. Unless you can appreciate the things around you. Now, I think Mother Stevenson, when I look back and hear her tell us about you, anybody ever heard her story? Mother Stevenson like Dorcas. Mother Stevenson, where's the children? Brother James, raise your hand. Mother Stevenson told me they were telling stories of Mother Stevenson. They came here and during the Great Migration, when folk would come to Detroit and couldn't find nowhere to stay. You know what Mother Stevenson and Brother Stevenson had done? They bought a house. And then if you came here and they knew you didn't need a place to stay, they said, come on over. And you said, well, I'm going to sleep. And one person at her birthday stood up and said, I slept in the bathroom. On the floor. Made a pallet. I'm talking about Dorcas. You ought to be standing up shouting. Saying, thank you, Lord. Praise your holy name for what you have done. To have someone in our midst with that kind of tenacity. You know, all the people that are running for office, I admire them, but I guarantee you, They won't put no pallet on the floor in that bathroom and let you sleep. They won't tell you you earn $15 this week. You keep it and you put it in the bank until you can get a place to stay. And here's what you ought to do with your money. Somebody need to reach out a hand. But before we can do that, man, we have to get ourselves together. Because I was talking to my friend, and it ain't them. It's us. Until you appreciate something.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Until you appreciate something. Until you appreciate something. I was talking to someone this morning. My heart is hurting. Y'all pray for me because I got to go talk to her after this. Her son decided to call her up and tell her, Mama, I don't like this job. I'm quitting. Then gonna go home and they tell me, don't you come down here yet. You know why? Somebody's got to tell you. Someone has to tell young men. And I know if you can go and hang out at the corner somewhere, you can come here. I'm thinking about making the service, General McKinney, an hour long. I came here last night and preached a sermon in front of this by myself. So every Saturday night, I'm going to come and open the church up. I don't care who comes. Because I know if I do it long enough, someone will show up. It's time out. Why do I say that? Because I was reading this story. Robert Williams, raise your hand. The woman he's talking about, his mother and my mama was so close till they went down and drew a line in the sand, ring in the sand, and stood inside of it. Said nothing can force us outside of this circle. And you know what they were talking about? Their love for each other and God's love. She told me I needed to take care of Robert. It's hard. We talk to each other every day because of Sue Williams and Bill Wafer. You just go home and call us into the place. I'm talking about strong folk. Mama tell me you can do anything. How's that job going? I'm going to tell you can do anything. I believe in you. I trust you. You can do anything. And then I used to tell her, you're the baddest woman I know. You are. Because she could take my hand, my face in her hand, and look in her eyes and say, basically tell me where I was that night before. Mr. White knows about that because they have the same characteristics in Grand Canyon. So all I'm telling you is, put your hand on some woman that's sitting beside you.
I know we